Hey guys, welcome back to a One Bit Podcast with Sean Fowler. Today we are doing a joint review on a speaker that we both love, or actually a brand that we both love, which is Rosso Fiorentino. And actually, this is a brand that you introduced me to, right? With the Sotaldos. And actually, the Sotaldos, despite it being discontinued, still remains in my recommendation list. So
Always have a place in my heart.
yeah, it's that speaker as always like, and it's Italian, it's a proper high-end brand. And we'll talk about all the things that you get with this. But this one is the Arnold 20, and it's a new speaker by Rosso. Fairly new, right?
Yeah,
Sean?
brand new launch. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's the price on this, Sean?
So these are expensive for everybody watching, right? So bear in mind, this is a proper luxury product. Rosso Fiorentino is not trying to make affordable gear, at least not yet. So these retail for $7,000 a pair. But I would encourage people to watch, even if they're not interested in a product like this, just because, in my biased opinion, I feel like Rosso Fiorentino is a brand that more people just need to be aware of. I think they're doing something pretty awesome, and they deserve, in my opinion, to be as popular as Kef, Dyne Audio, Sonus Faber, all these guys. They just haven't really caught their lucky break yet, but I think it's interesting stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, like you guys know I love Sonus Faber, but also Rosso being an Italian brand, like I was very much interested when you first introduced to me as Sean, and like it just sounds to me, it's a different flavor than Sonus Faber for sure, but to me it's more of my jam now. It's more audiophile in a sense, so we'll talk about that. And this is usually how I do my reviews now is likes and dislikes. So we'll try to follow that format. So in terms of build quality, let's talk about the likes first.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you have any particular likes about the build quality? Like, you felt was exceptional on this speaker that can't be found elsewhere, or, just generally stuff you
Sure.
like?
So I've had a lot of high-end compact speakers, right? Even, ones that were never featured on this channel. What I like so much about the Arno 20 is this a high-end speaker with a big price tag, but then when you pull it out of the box, you immediately see and feel where your money is going. It is stupidly well made. It uses a mix of materials in the cabinet. You have aluminum, HDF, then you have other materials also married to it. And the fit and finish is fantastic. And I like the fact that, unlike a lot of exotic products, they actually use a paint that can withstand scratches and, fingerprints and all that. And you can easily just rub it out. So I think just from a fit and finish and raw build quality standpoint, they're fantastic. So yeah, I had no complaints, literally none. How about you?
Yeah. So honestly speaking, I didn't have much complaint. Now, like being around bigger speakers for less money, like the Arandos, of course. Um, I do wish that it was a little bit bigger, right?
Sure.
But I mean, we're talking about a compact speaker here. Every speaker has an application. And for that, I think you're getting a really high quality, like Sean said, fit and finish. And that specific, and we'll get to the sound part here in a minute, but that specific, combination of materials used in the cabinet, I think exerts a specific type of sound. Now, I know, the whole premise behind this is like, make it as inert as possible, like no cabinet resonance, right? And I get that. And we saw that with Wilson Audios, like X material and so forth. Different brands have different materials, sandwich materials to kind of combat the resonances and make the cabinet more inert in their own way. But from that, I think depending on the materials they use, I think the cabinet itself exerts a specific type of sound, whether they're inert or not. Because with the Russell, it's always that distinctive sound, and it's hard to explain, but it's always that distinctive sound that's not too closed off in terms of the cabinet liveliness,
Yeah.
but just the right amount to where it feels like the cabinet is breathing in such a natural and easygoing way. So I really love the overall build quality and the materials used here. I think everything is very much that Italian craftsmanship, and that goes for the binding post as well. I really love using the binding post on this thing.
You and your binding posts.
Now, I do have a dislike,
Uh-huh.
and particularly, I think you feel the same way about this.
Okay.
I'm not too hot on the red finish.
Oh, I don't mind a red finish.
Really?
I got
Okay.
the blue finish. That's way more polarizing.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I think we're on the same page on that one. But I'm not particularly a fan of the gloss red finish. Maybe if this was matte, like it's Aldo's, I think maybe I'm more game. But in terms of aesthetics, personal preference thing, I think really like the carbon fiber one, and I'll put a picture of that here.
Yeah, let's
Really nice.
say, like, one of the things about this, though, is that you can get it in wood. You can get it in lacquer, which is what you
That's the beauty, right? Like,
leather, you can get, yeah, carbon fiber, so you have a lot of options.
yeah, I'm a sucker for carbon fiber, so that was like, oh god, I wanted that one. And I guess another con in a way is like that stands. Like, I think you weren't a fan of the stands.
Yeah, so, first and foremost, I mean, the stands are properly well made, and I
Mm.
think they already come with damping material inside, so you don't have to fill them with sand, which is nice. And you also have the option, you don't have to do this, but if you buy the stands, you can get them color matched to whatever color it is or veneer that you chose with your speakers, which some people are gonna like, some people aren't, but at least you have that option. But I think at $1,700, I think it changes the value proposition of this speaker, and in my room, at least, I have found that they sounded better without the stands. I think they sound better a little bit lower to the ground. And quite frankly, I hate to be mean to them. I think with the stands, they start to look like Minecraft creepers. Like, really and truly, man, I was just like, dude. So, to me, I see this more as a $7,000 speaker versus, like, an almost $9,000 speaker. I think the stands, if you're a taller individual, it can clean up the sound. I think it does do a good job there, but I think with the stands and cleaning up the sound, you almost lose some of what made Rosso Fiorentino historically stand out from some of its competitors, which we can talk about, I guess, later.
Yeah. I would say in terms of the aesthetic that I don't mind it too much. But in terms of the performance, I did not like the spikes that came with the stands. I resorted to using the tough cones, which actually made it a lot better and tightened up that bass. Um, but yeah, overall, if you want like the matching finish, I think the stands are great. But otherwise, no complaints. Yeah. So I think now we'll move on to like the sound quality. I think that's where most people are interested in, anyways.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, sure.
yeah. So what was your take?
My take is I think they're fantastic. So most people aren't going to know what the Rosso Fiorentino sound is. So to just summarize it as quickly as possible, Rosso Fiorentino tries to find this balance between giving you what audiophiles like, imaging and clarity and all that stuff, but usually there's a hint of romance to the sound, right? I would say it's slightly a more tonally authentic version and maybe a slightly cleaner version of what you'd experience from Sonus Faber. Take the same general formula, improve it a little bit. With this speaker, they're going much more in that linear and dynamic direction, right? It still does retain some of that warmth, but their new series is definitely going in more of a technically more balanced and clean sound. As far as what I think about the performance of the Arno 20, dude, I think they're fantastic. I will go on record to say probably one of my desert island small speakers under $10,000, maybe my favorite. And here's why. What you're getting is something that does the audiophile things exceptionally well, the soundstage. A lot of people care about imaging. Huge soundstage. It floats around a room. It's very precise. The soundstage layering the depth within the soundstage is stupidly good, right? Proper high end stuff. You get treble that is extraordinarily detailed and refined, but in an unforced way. It doesn't sound like it's trying to give you a bunch of detail. It's just naturally emanating from the speaker. The mid range is incredibly clean, really good tone, really good at revealing intricate sounds of instruments in a way that's pretty authentic. The bass, strong it's strong when it needs to be, but it's never overly in your face, right? It's one of those speakers that it's more about clarity, but when the bass needs to hit, it'll shock you sometimes. It's like, Jesus. I mean, I know it's rated to 45 hertz. I swear it digs a lot lower in my room. So overall, I think it's just a really good, well-rounded speaker with just enough warmth to still be friendly to work with and easy to listen to across a wide variety of music. That's kind of my take.
Cool. Yeah, I was actually curious as to how you would describe this speaker sound. And it's that typical Russell sound. So like if you like the Sotaldos, then the chances are you're gonna probably like the Arnos maybe even more.
Yeah.
But like Sean said, I do find that the Arno 20s are more audiophile than the Sotaldos in the sense that it's now more resolute. It's more floaty, has more floaty detail. And it does this thing without being too in your face, like Sean said, or aggressive or bright or harsh sounding. which has been my experience with speakers like Magical or Focal, for example. So it's a lot more forgiving is the word I would use. Even though the Arnold 20s are more resolute, more detailed, more nuanced, and overall tonality wise, slightly brighter than the Sotaldos, despite that, it's still a lot more forgiving and warm, inviting type of sound compared to like speakers like Focal and Magical in the similar price range. I will also say, however, compared to like, even just to give context here, compared to like Sonus Faber Electa Motor 3s, those are more I would describe as romantic, right? Like warmer, lusher, and so on and so forth. But in terms of soundstage, I still get that exact kind of beautiful, wide soundstage, 3D holographic soundstage, especially with some tube gear with the Arno 20s as I did with the Electa Motor 3s. So I think both are really great in that soundstage. Where I do think personally, the thing that I really liked about the Arno 20s is that when I use a tube output stage of the SD 3.3 SACD player, or the R2R DACs that I have, I like to review R2R DACs. It really shows me that layering really, really well. And not all speakers are able to do that. In fact, I got a comment on my recent R2R DAC review of the live micro DAC. Someone was like, "Oh yeah, I don't hear any of that layering. I don't know what you're talking about," right? And it's true. Like you don't get that with every speaker. And Arnold 20s here somehow portrays that layering between the soundstage, between the instruments, between the speakers and myself very, very well. So it's more three-dimensional, easy to discern the imagery. So it's a very inviting yet engaging experience. It's a good balance, I find.
No, and I think you've just brought up something very interesting that I noticed last night, or I was reminded of when listening to them before filming this again. And that is they are insanely resolving.
Mhm.
Like, for people like, there's no differences between amps and DACs. Yeah, try it with these. Despite the fact that they're not as aggressive and as in your face as some popular hi-fi brands, because they're so effortlessly resolving. As you switch between a Hagel and an Audiolab and a Name and an Accuphase and a blah and a blah, the differences are so obvious and laid to bear. But what I also like about these speakers is you don't necessarily need to use super high-end and expensive gear to get them to sound musically enjoyable, but they definitely can reward you. In fact, I'll even say that they're a speaker that even though they're expensive at 7 grand, it's not out of the question to pair 20 or even $30,000 worth of electronics to them. They will reward you. It'll sound natural in that environment. You're not going to feel like they're the weak link, or at least it's going to take you a lot of money before they become the weak link. And that's really a testament to their overall performance of just striking that balance between, hey, this is fun to listen to. I feel like I can listen to whatever I want through these, right? But still get that ridiculous audiophile experience, which is why I said at the beginning, this would probably be my desert island bookshelf speaker under 10K. I've yet to come across something that does what I want to do in a way that's better than these.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. And I don't want this to get too rambly in that regard, but I just want to put out there that in my head, right, when I think about a detailed, nuanced, type of airy presentation, I usually think about like a brighter sound, right? But the reason the Rostal's house sound was so fascinating to me, starting with the Sotaldos and now the Arnold 20s here, is that it's not bright. It's not forward. It's not, if anything, I would describe it as, a bit laid back compared to the other brands, right? But it does have detail and nuance just as good as those other brighter speakers. So it's not so much about the tonality, it's about actual detail and nuance, right? Because that high end kind of meme where people are like, "Oh yeah, you want detail and treble, detail and nuance, just increase the high frequency, right? Uh, that's what you want, just increase the high frequency. There, you hear all the details." And that's kind of what I thought it was. It's like, being tasteful in how you tune that high frequency, right?
Sure.
But here, you get that nuance and detail in spades in the mid range and high frequency without sounding bright in the overall tonality. Oh,
That matter.
no, that's interesting.
Yeah. So we've said a bunch of great things about it, but they're not perfect. Nothing
Yeah.
is. So what are some of the issues that you had with it in terms of performance?
Okay, so in terms of issues, I would say that the bass, right? Maybe not as strong on all tracks. Now, it does surprise me a bit because at times on certain tracks, it wows me. I'm like, whoa, like a lot of bass for a small compact speaker. But on some tracks, I don't quite get enough heft to the sound. And that's to be expected. It's a compact bookshelf speaker.
Sure.
But it does remind me a lot of the Sotaldo's bass,
Mhm.
right? And what I love so much about it is that it was a slim tower, but had pretty kick-ass bass.
Yep.
And I don't think you get the exact same amount of bass heft here. No, like, great bass quality texture, but not as much heft here. So that would be the only negative that I can personally find.
Okay.
How
Okay.
about you?
I 100% agree with what you said, so I don't have anything to add there. I think the only complaint that I would have with it is the mid range. So the mid
Mhm.
range is clean, very clean, and I wouldn't call it thin. I wouldn't call it warm. But what I will say is this: if you're a fan of like classic rock and roll and whatnot, and music that really likes that big, meaty mid range, then you may feel like that the sound is a little bit thin to your taste just because it's so clean in that regard that it doesn't have that artificial warmth. And like, say, a Dyne Audio Heritage Special, that's a speaker that sounds wonderful, even though it's small. It sounds wonderful with that kind of music because it's bumped up in that frequency range. So that's the one genre of music that I found: Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, so on and so forth, to where the Arno 20 still sounds good, but you may prefer other speakers that have that artificial coloration in the mid range just to give the music that extra sense of fullness. But for everything else, I think it was fine.
Mhm. Also, I will also say, I think the component matching also helps with that, how lean or full the speaker come across. Personally, for me, like when I had it with the EMM Labs MTRS, I found it to be more fuller sounding than if I had it with the AccuPhase E700.
Mm,
But that has been my experience. Now, both sound great in their own way. Like the AccuPhase sounded more detailed and nuanced in that mid range and more palpable, right? In that detail. But like Sean said, on some tracks, it was a little bit lean in that presentation.
yep.
Whereas the MTRS wasn't as nuanced or detailed in that mid range, but it had some serious body with this speaker. So I did like those two amplifiers for different reasons. And I also found that, I don't know about you, Sean, but like I personally find that the AccuPhase's house sound comes very similar as the Rossal's. Did you find that?
There is some similarity.
There are similarities, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
And it makes for a great match, by the way.
Yeah.
She's a really good match. Much a good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that to be quite interesting. And I just did a review of the live UDAC or micro DAC, I should say. And that also has similar kind of, character, overall sound character. So the three of them in the same chain, I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like, this is like really nice micro details and nuance without, ever being harsh. Now, some people may find that system a little bit too laid back or too soft, but personally for me, it was the right balance.
Yeah. So for me, first and foremost, let's just talk about power requirements. I mean, these speakers are 8 ohms, and I think the dB sensitivity rating is 87 dB. So they're supposed to be on paper pretty easy to drive. And I found that to be mostly the case. If you're in a small room, you don't need a lot of power, honestly. If you get away with like a 20-watt British integrated amplifier, tube amp, just fine. In a bigger room, you're probably going to want around 50 to 100.
Mhm.
And when it comes to the type of electronics that sound good with these, I feel like it's interesting in the sense that they do seem to pair well to a wide variety of gear. But what really brings out their best are products that either have rich and warm sounding mid range, in my experience, or or something that is very refined and just doubles down on their refinement. And now you're just being treated to basically what is. It feels like you're listening to a $20,000 dollar set of speakers if you can find the right refined integrated. Like for me, the one that probably paired up the best, in my opinion, even though they sounded great with my AccuPhase, the E800 and all that, is the Pro, was it 200 IX? I can't remember the exact name. We'll just call it the Pro 200 integrated amplifier. Very balanced, and just seemed to complement these speakers in literally every way. And the price is right. Like the price is what you would expect to pair up to something in this price range. So to me, that was one of the better pairings. How about you? No, I guess you kind of went
Well, I kind of went over it, but I did miss one,
okay.
and it's probably the best one. So I don't know why I missed it. But it's like ever since I had the Rosso, right? I had the AGD audience, and AGD is like literally like used at shows with Rosso. And I think actually either AGD or Rosso, one of the other, uses the other one in their showroom. And I found this out after trying it out, and they just happened to be a really good match. Now, I feel like the Sotaldos and the Audion monoblocks are a better match than the Arno 20s here, just because with the Arno 20s specifically, with the AGD audience, does come across to me a little bit leaner than I personally like it. And that's why I think personally I would like the AccuFace E700 with the Arno 20s for myself a little bit better because it's a little bit thicker, but it's a small difference. But yeah, either AccuFace, AGD audience, or AGD gear in general. Even the tempo is great. Have it right here. And the EMM Labs MTRS, of course, if you can shell out $50,000 on an amp. All great options. And like Sean said, I really like the speaker because it really scales. Like you put a great amplifier, you immediately hear the benefits of doing that.
And to be clear, you can use an affordable piece on it.
Yeah.
Like I use the name that's currently being discounted for under $2,000. If you like the name sound, it's going to be great. The Hagel H95, actually,
Yeah.
fantastic match, $2,000, fantastic match. You could be happy with that, you know. So there's a lot of flexibility there. So, I think we covered just about everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we just wrap this up? Final thoughts, Jay.
For me, I think with some of the stuff that I have, I would add a subwoofer for that extension and sub bass heft.
Yes, yes.
And it would just be like just perfect. I mean, it really is awesome. I love the Sotaldos. This is just like a more refined version of the Sotaldos. Like, I think it's a fantastic speaker.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that conclusion. I mean, for me, my final thoughts on the Rosso Arno 20 is they're definitely moving away from that classic romantic sound. You still hear a bit of it there, but I think the net result is in a direction that it needs to go in because let's face it, affordable speakers now, and even speakers in the $2,000 to $3,000 price range especially, have become ridiculously good. I think you need to do something to distinguish yourself. And I think a part of this is if you're paying all this money, it's not even just about the build quality. It's about feeling like you're taking a step up in objective ways over, the more affordable price gear. And I can honestly say that even going from like a Kef R3 Meta, which is a retail hound or detail hound at its price range, you definitely feel like you're getting basically twice the speaker, in terms of overall sound quality, something that's easier to listen to, more detailed, yada, yada, yada. I think the only thing that, the R3 Meta may have over it's just raw bass output, but even then that's questionable. So anyways, I think this is a speaker that's a sweet spot. And it's definitely something that if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I like the Bacard audio sound, but I want way more detail and want a much better version of even the E50, this is it. Hands down, like this is absolutely it. So I think it's a speaker that I'm going to recommend to a lot of people who are willing to take a chance on a brand that, may not be as ubiquitous as the others. But if you have this kind of money and this is the kind of thing you want from a small speaker, I think it delivers in spades. I think it's definitely something that could get you off the hi-fi merry-go-round.
Yeah, I think it's definitely at least worth a demo. And they're around shows too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, man. I think that's about
yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, Sean will answer all the questions in the comment section. All we ask is that you click that like button and subscribe to both of our channels, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Until next time.
Peace.
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight.